We're gonna talk about the Duelist Cup. Of course, if you guys have been watching the stream, you guys have seen me participate and try my hardest in this Duelist Cup. And while I didn't win it, I still think 12th in the world is something to be proud of. At least I'm proud of how I played this weekend. I think it was a good weekend. Obviously it's not the first Duelist Cup I've participated in, but I really do feel like I've been practicing my mentality for these Duelist Cups, because ultimately, of course, they are really stressful and it's a really long grind. And I feel like your mental needs to be really strong for it. And that is something that I was always lacking at. You know, if you guys have seen me play previous Duelist Cups, there was always moments where I crashed out at something. Because of course, and you guys also know this, I'm not happy about everything in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel format, right? Like there's things that frustrate me. There's cards that I think shouldn't be allowed to be played. There's decks that I'm not a fan of playing against. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm not happy about in Master Duel, but ultimately, I think if you focus too much on that during a Duelist Cup, then you're just going to crash out and tilt, and that's not going to be good for your performance. So for this one of my goals was to not crash out at this stuff. Like, if I lose a game, I lose a game. If I play against something that I don't like, then so be it. If I play against something like man decks or whatever that negate all of my cards, you know, it's part of the game. That's what I was trying to implement for this weekend, and it worked out well. You know, I just I didn't crash out the entire weekend. I kept my focus. If I ever felt like I was frustrated or tired, I took a break, and I've noticed that improved my performance a lot, and that makes me really happy because it gets me closer to a better performance next time. Because for the longest time, whenever I played Duelist Cups, I always wondered, like, hey, how are people like Task, how are people like Ryan consistently winning these tournaments? I couldn't figure it out, and I think I'm onto it now. I'm not saying like I'm gonna win the next one, but I'm getting closer to a state of mind in which I could see myself winning one. Like, this one was the first time where I actually felt like it was close and I was within reach. Of course, there was still a bunch of points that were missing towards the end, but this weekend it was possible, I think. Yeah, and Task, speaking of, Task did win this Duelist Cup, of course. Shoutouts to Haas on Twitter, who's been compiling the results in a spreadsheet. I've been taking a little bit of a look at it. Let me move over here actually so you can see the names. Jesse got sick. We played against Jesse a couple times on the weekend. I had some banger games with Jesse in the Draco Tail Mirror. It was really fun. Christian Urena got second, really close. And I will say, if you guys remember, I played against Task in the last hour. I lost to Task with Draco Tail when he was playing Vanquish Soul K9. His hand was really good. He opened Fuwa when I went first. Then I activated Stake Your Soul. I flamed it. He had Ash, and then a couple of really good engine cards in hand as well. He had a really good hand. He won against me. But what that means is if I win against Task in the last hour, he actually gets second, because not only did he gain 1,000 points from beating me, if I win instead, he loses more than 1,000. So that makes a difference in total of over 2,000 points, and then he doesn't end on 80,000. He ends on 79. Something, right? Which is crazy if you think about it, right? The entire weekend comes down to like that one game in the last hour. If he loses, if I beat him in the last hour, then Christian Urena goes to Worlds and not Task. So basically it's your fault. I mean, you can look at it that way, but I mean, I tried my hardest. I can't beat him all the time. I don't know if we played before then. I did beat a couple of Vanquish Souls. Maybe Task was one of those as well. I'm assuming with how much I played, maybe I played him multiple times over the course of the weekend, but that was the only time I noticed that it was him. So yeah, it is crazy to think about sometimes, like how single games can make such a huge difference in a Duelist Cup, because I often looked at it with like, oh, one game is worth 1,000 points, but if you really think about it, that is not true, because if you win instead of losing, it doesn't give you 1,000 points, it gives you 2,000 points, more than 2,000 points, because you gain 1,000 instead of losing over 1,000, which means that every game you win instead of losing makes a difference of 2,000 points roughly. which also means, and this is something that I thought about yesterday, just to conceptualize this, if over the course of this entire weekend, I don't know how many games I played, like 200, 250, 300, I have no idea. But if I would have won 8 games instead of losing them within that time span, that would have been, then I would have been first, right? And this is true for everyone in the top 10, top 15, because 8 wins instead of 8 losses would be 16,000 points, slightly more than 16,000 points, which would have put me at like roughly 82, right? And so it's, if you think about it that way, it's very close. So yeah, it's crazy. It's the same thing for Christian Urena. Literally, Christian, to conceptualize how close this is, right? The difference of less than 2,000 points means that if Christian Urena across the entire weekend wins one more game instead of losing it, he's first, is what that means. Which is how close this is. Out of all the 200, 300 games he played, if he wins one of them instead of losing it, he wins the Duelist Cup, which is also crazy to think about. And this is another thing that if you watch the stream of me this weekend, then you know this as well. He had a game on, I think it was Saturday night, where he played against me, and he timed out with game on board. That was the only time an opponent in this Duelist Cup timed out against me. It was like a 30-minute Draco Tail mirror match banger, and I think he found a very smart way to win at the end, but he didn't have the time to do it. And if he wins that game instead of losing it, then he also, in theory, if the rest of the weekend goes the same way, he gets 2,000 points extra instead of, and then he wins. So like, it's crazy to me how in such a long tournament, such small things can make such a big difference. But yeah, that's what's so exciting about this. I feel like it's yeah. Anyways, I'm looking forward to the regional qualifier. It depends on this year whether we're gonna get 1 or 2 slots into EU. I don't know. I would assume, since Worlds are in Japan this time around, I think we're gonna get 1 slot in EU probably. Which means, just looking at this ranking, I don't know who's in 11th place, but right now, from the people that are known on this, I would have been 2nd in EU. There was one person in 8th place, Kageura, who was apparently also from EU. But definitely would have been close. So we'll have to wait and see how it works out in the regional qualifier. I mean, I always knew, or I always know with these Duelist Cups that it's incredibly hard to get first in the world, and it's not super realistic. But this was definitely the closest I've ever gotten, so I'm really happy about it, and I always want to play them as practice for the World's qualifier regardless, if I can. So I'm happy I played. Okay. Also, one thing... Hold up. One thing I wanted to point out that I thought was really smart was the inclusion of Retaliating Sea in Task's deck. And I saw a couple of other players using Retaliating Sea over the course of the weekend. And I thought about that, and I just think it's really smart. And I didn't think of it throughout the weekend. I mean, I was playing Draco Tail. I'm not sure if I would have played Retaliating Sea in Draco Tail, but I never really, I got hit with Retaliating Sea maybe once or twice over the course of the entire weekend. It didn't feel like a popular choice, and I think that this is one of the reasons why Task was doing so well. The more I think about it now, the more I feel like this was a genius inclusion in this deck. Because if you look at the top meta decks in the format right now, Retaliating Sea, first up, destroys Draco Tail, especially if they go for the Verte line. The Verte line gets completely obliterated by Retaliating Sea. If you've seen me do the Verte line, the way you do it is you summon Arthalion, you set Rahu, you normal summon, you make Verte, then you activate Rahu, and after the Rahu resolves, you activate Verte. If you get Retaliating Seed on that Rahu, the game's over. Because your Rahu doesn't do shit. Like, you lose the Rahu, you lose a card from your hand, you don't get the effects. You get a Gulamel. And then you can't even use the Verte because it has to send Branded Fusion for cost. So you get completely destroyed by Retaliating Sea in Draco Tail. But the Sulfur Court Yami deck, which was probably the most popular deck in the Duelist Cup, I would estimate. I didn't keep track of all my matchups, but I think the Sulfur Court Yami deck was by far the deck I played against the most. It's more of a gut feeling, but I think it was by far the most popular. Retaliating Sea is good against this deck because Sulfur Court Happiness is a spell card that includes an effect that special summons. If they ever start with Happiness, Retaliating Sea also wins that matchup. I mean, it doesn't immediately win the matchup, but it forces them into some really weird lines. As well as if they don't have Happiness, you can still use it against Yami Surprise, which means they have to either Herald negate it, or they have to get their Surprise gets banished and they can't get it back. You make Secretarian inverted and Rahu into Arthalion. This way you can bounce Retaliating. I did that a couple of times. Yeah, I did that line a couple of times, but it's not always the same level of convenient. It doesn't always work because you don't always start with like Lucius plus Phimena or Lucius plus Dragon, right? Sometimes it's just Cartesia, Phimena, Spellcaster or something. Like, it doesn't always work. Or you sometimes you have to make the Arthalion with a you have to make an Arthalion with just Huwalos and whatever, right? So it can work that way, but it is not it's not always possible. And also it still is not immediately winning the game because the Retaliating is back in hand. Your board is weaker, so it's more likely that you're going to get into a grind game. But if you get into a grind game and they have Retaliating Sea in hand, that's also going to mess up your next turn, most likely, right? So it still is a really high value card, even if you play around it that way. So yeah. And then against Mitsuraiziel, the card is also not dead, right? You just summon it, it makes some of their stuff get banished, which is annoying. But also, if they pop it with Murakumo, you just search Max C. So I think the card, and it also destroys Gem Knight because they got some fusion spells. So the card is also really good against Gem Knight. Literally every matchup except for the Vanquish Soul K9 Mirror, the Retaliating Sea was really good. So literally against the other 9 players in the top 10, the card was really strong. So I really, you gotta respect that choice. That was a really, really good meta call to include the Retaliating Sea. I thought that was impressive. So yeah, this was the list that won the Duelist Cup. Doesn't Retaliating Sea not come up much against Yami? You can activate Retaliating Sea against every single Yami comp. Because they either start with Sulfur Court Happiness, then it's really strong, or you can always force them to banish their Surprise, which makes their end board significantly weaker. In hindsight, would you have switched to Vanquish Soul K9 with that tech choice? No, I'm not a fan of Vanquish Soul K9 in the format right now. But I saw other players also including Retaliating Sea towards the end. I don't know who it was in their Draco Tail builds. I saw someone post a Draco Tail list with Retaliating Sea somewhere. I don't know who it was. But I think maybe you could have played like, I can show you the deck list that I ended up using towards the end. It was this, which I was really happy about. But you could have played Retaliating Sea in this. The only thing you had to do was you would need to play Typhon, I think, if you play Retaliating Sea, just so you have worst case a way to turn it into something. Or like if you're playing the mirror match, I think it would be a decent line to normal summon and then make Typhon, and then you can return the Retaliating to your hand or something. You could do that. But yeah. Why not 2 Cartesia? So this is not the list. This is not the list I used for the entire weekend. I started playing with 2 Nibiru, 2 Purulia, and 2 Urgula, I think. No Bell and 2 Cartesias, I think. That rough. Hold up. It was -2 Bell, -1 Nib, -1 Urgula, which is -4 cards, plus 2 Purulia, plus what else? There was a short period of time where I played Veilers, 1 or 2 Veilers I played for a very short. Oh, Droll. I played Droll, right? No, at the start I played 1 Cartesia. I played 2 Nib, 2 Droll, 2 Purulia instead of the Bells, and the 3rd Nib and the 3rd Urgula. The switch to the third nib I made at some point in the higher ranks, because at some point in the higher ranks, the game was infested with Yummy. Like there was, I remember, I think it was Saturday evening. I played against like 6 Yummies in a row or something. And like in the last 10 games, I had like 7 or 8 Yummies. So at some point I was like, I'm playing 3 Nibs. I don't care. There's a couple of matchups where Nib sucks going second, but I going first, it's always good. And it's way too important against Yummy. So I put in 3 Nibs. And I never went back. I never went back from the third Nibiru. I put in the third Nibiru at some point, and I never took it out. It was just, I was way too happy with what it did. Perulias, eventually I removed Perulias because I got tired of opening them going first. It was not necessarily because they were bad going second. It was a fine card for me whenever I drew it going second, but it wasn't winning me enough games going second to justify having the brick in the deck going first. So I took out the Perulias at some point. And the bells came in very late because at some point people started realizing, or at least in the higher ranks, I feel like Draco Tail was a very popular deck. On the first 2 days, I almost never played against Draco Tail. I think on the first day, we played against like maybe 1 or 2 Draco Tails. I don't know. Like there was not many Draco Tails in the beginning. So the Drolls were a lot better for me in the beginning, and then I started playing against more Draco Tails and more Yummies and whatever, and then the Drolls started becoming worse for me. And then I took out the Drolls and the Perulias for bells. I also added the third Urgula because of the mirror matches. Yeah. That was my thought process. Like after the first day and during the second day, I knew that I wanted to play Draco Tail until the end because it's the deck that I love the most in Master Duel right now. I have the most fun, and I also think I play it the best out of all the decks in Master Duel. Like I don't think there's another deck I can play as well as Draco Tail. So I decided that I was going to keep playing it until the end and just switch around some of the non-engine depending on what the format was. And when and this was doing really well for me towards the end because basically I was facing, on day 3, it was mostly Yummy. And then after Yummy, it was mostly Mitsurugi and Draco Tail. And so the bells did really well for me. Now that you played it with Branded Fusion, does it feel better? I am not sure. I had the urge a couple of times throughout the weekend to switch to the non-branded version for 3 reasons. The first reason was that I hated drawing Fallen of Albaz. That has definitely ruined a couple of games. The second reason is that the non-branded version has more monsters, and I did have a bunch of games where I drew Phimena, but not enough monsters to use it going second, which I thought was really annoying. And also, extra deck space. Like, there's a couple of cards that I would love to play. As what you notice from my extra deck is there's no Typhon, which is a card that I love in this deck, but I just couldn't fit it. I couldn't bring myself to cut one of the cards in here. I started playing Psychic End Punisher and Titaniclad in the beginning to have a way to beat Lunalight. Then I realized no one's playing Lunalight, and I took the cards out. But in pure Draco Tail without branded, you still have room to play it just in case. I did play against 1 or 2 Lunalights, but I didn't lose to them, luckily, even without an out in the deck, because they never got to summon Liger. But that would have been a problem if I ran into it and they summoned Liger. This deck does not have an out. I have to either scoop or I have to try to go for deck out, which means like a long and grindy and stressful game that's gonna take like an hour away from you. So, and you might not even win it in the end. So it's rough. But yeah, it can work, I know, but it's really stressful and it takes a lot of time away. So yeah, and then also pure Draco Tail, because you cut basically what you would do if you wanted to play pure Draco Tail is you cut 2 Branded Fusion, you cut Albaz, and you cut Frixel, which is 4 cards out, and you add 2 Cartesias, and usually you add a second Pan, which is plus 3 cards, but you take out 4. Which means you have 1 more non-engine slot. Or you could even do 2 more non-engine and just play 1 Pan anyways. Right? So the deck has more non-engine. And so I wasn't sure if like maybe it was good to switch to pure Draco Tail. But also I did win a lot of games going first with the Verte line. Like the Verte line is so good. My theory is that a lot of those games I can win anyways if I go for hieratic seals instead, because that is what the pure version does instead, right? Is you usually make hieratic seals, which is also a good end board piece, right? Hieratic seals is basically you bounce something and then you summon Mululu. So it is also multiple interruptions. It is a good line as well, but it is not as powerful as Sanctifier. Like Sanctifier or Mirror Jade are incredible end board pieces for this deck. Also, I did win a couple of games going second because of Branded Fusion. Like, I remember one game in particular where my Mitsurugi opponent, they went first with Impulse plus Great Purification, and I already used like a hand trap or two, and then I had like 4 or 5 cards in hand, and I only had 2 plays. I had Rahu and Branded Fusion, and a couple of Draco Tails that were not a play. I had like Urgula or Pan. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was like Frixel. I think it was Frixel, Pan, Branded Fusion, Rahu, and a trap or something like that. And then I activated Rahu. They impulsed it, and I was like, I almost surrendered because I was like, okay, well, I have one more play and they have the trap card. But I was like, okay, let me just activate Branded Fusion. And they played around me having Ketu in hand. So they didn't activate the trap card. They let the Branded Fusion resolve, and then I ended up winning like a crazy grind game from that position, which is something that I don't know if Cartesia could have done that instead with the other deck. But yeah, so the Branded Fusion did well for me, but I'm not sure if like the pure version could have done even better. I think it's possible. Branded Fusion is so good that you need to negate it at all costs, I feel. I don't think that's true. I think in this deck, the Branded Fusion works pretty well as a bait for hand traps, because the more powerful card, I think, usually is Ketu Draco Tail, especially when you're playing into a board. But the thing with Branded Fusion is that your opponent is in a really weird spot where it's like, okay, I can negate this Branded Fusion, and then if they have Ketu, I might get owned by it. But if I don't negate Branded Fusion, then they have Ketu guaranteed, right? Because they can set it with Frixel. So if they already have Ketu, then I want to negate the Branded Fusion. But if they don't have Ketu, then it's really good to negate the Branded Fusion. And they never know, right? And so that puts your opponent in a really awkward spot to make misplays, like the one that I just mentioned with the Mitsurugi player, which, I mean, it from their perspective, maybe it wasn't a misplay. Maybe they thought they can win the grind game against the Branded Fusion and let it resolve just to make sure I don't have Ketu. But they were wrong. They got outgrinded. So, yeah. Did Albion or Lubellion ever get summoned? Yes, a lot. Both of these I summoned a lot. I used everything in this extra deck a very good amount, to the point where I would not want to cut it. Like, even the more niche cards, which are Mysterion and Philia Regis, they came up a lot for me. Granted, I played a lot of games, but both of these were really good for me. So, yeah. How often did you go into the third Arthalion? A decent amount. I had some really long mirror matches, mainly... I mean, it's not a coincidence, but I remember vividly having a bunch of really long mirror matches against both Urena and Jessie. And in those matchups, I basically always needed the third Arthalion. It came down to the wire basically every time we played. So yeah. Any chance you saved the mirror games versus Jessie? I didn't save them, no. But they're all in the VODs. So the best games against Jessie were on day 3. I think we played multiple times. And against Urena, the game where he timed out, that was like a 30-minute banger or 40-minute banger. That was on day 2. But yeah, extra deck space is rough for this deck, definitely. Extra deck space is rough. But yeah. So in terms of, I guess, one thing that we should talk about, because there is going to be a ban list soon in Master Duel, right? After the Duelist Cup, usually they announce one a couple of days after. Maybe let's talk about what I want to see on that ban list. I don't have a graphic prepared for anything. Like you know, forgive me, I didn't have that much energy yesterday. But we can just yap about it a little bit without like a tier list maker thingy where I pull the images into the thing, right? Just a few things. I would love to see some hits to the Odeon deck, which might sound weird because it's not very popular in the top 100. There's one here at 40th place. But this is by far the deck that I had the least fun playing against the entire weekend. And there's a 0% chance that I'm alone with that. This deck's entire purpose is to just negate every single card your opponent plays. And this is, I'm repeating myself because I've said this countless times in the past. This deck is miserable to play against. Zero skill expression. Zero interactivity. Basically, every single card in this deck says negate your opponent's card. And it is probably the worst Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay that you will ever witness. My suggestion would be to do two things, which is they need to ban Baron the Fleur. This is not even just for this deck, but just in general. There's no way this card is still allowed in Master Duel. That is completely insane. So get rid of Baron de Fleur makes this deck already significantly worse, because the fact that the Primite engine is basically 2 Omni Negates in this deck is crazy, because it gets you Drill Beam, plus it gets you Baron, and then you have a trap monster to it. Like if they draw the combination of Field Spell plus Drill Beam of Primite, they have 3 Omnis. 3 Omnis with 2 cards plus any of the other traps that they draw. You are never playing the game. So Baron needs to go, and then preferably some hit to the engine in this deck. Like they can limit the Odeon Field Spell, or they can limit the Lordly Load or whatever. Like I don't care, but like hit one of those cards and get rid of Baron is the minimum they should do for this deck, in my opinion. Yeah, that's how I feel about this deck personally. I did not enjoy playing against it. It was my least favorite deck to play against all weekend. For the other decks, Sulfur Court Yummy should absolutely take a hit. I don't know. We don't have to talk about whether Herald of the Arclight needs to be banned or not. That card needs to be gone, okay? The question is, are they going to do it already? Or do they want to give Yummy a little bit more time in the sun before they get rid of Arclight, all right? Maybe they're going to leave Arclight around for a while. But there's a couple of other things I would like to see get rid of, and one of my main things that I would like to see go is Herald of Orange Light. This is not only for Yummy Sulfur Court, but also for Gem Knights. They just use Herald of Orange Light as one of the best hand traps going second, but also to just ignore any hand traps when they go first. For this deck, it's even worse, because this deck even searches Orange Light and Green Light with Ava. So even if you put Orange Light to 1, they can still search it with Ava. But this deck, I played against this deck a lot on day 3 because there was a couple of people doing really well with it. And the most annoying card by far in this deck is Orange Light. The board for this deck is genuinely like beatable. Like it's a good deck, but you can beat the board. But they always have double Herald behind it, and then you just cannot play the game. So they should hit Herald of Orange Light, in my opinion, because this also hits Yummy without killing it, obviously. And it hits the Gem Knight deck as well without actually hurting the engine of the deck. Like, you can still play Gem Knights, you're just not searching double Orange Light anymore. So, yeah. What does Gigantic Sprite do in this deck? So they do a very long-winded combo, then they go Sprint, send Crystal Rose, revive Crystal Rose, which is level 2, overlay for Gigantic summon Diviner of the Herald, and then Diviner of the Herald can send Ava to search 2 Herald. Something like that. And then on your turn, then they make Sprite Elf, and they bring back Herald of the Diviner of the Herald to also send Mudora. So on top of the Fiendsmith cards, on top of the Omni Negate of the Gem Knight cards, and Abawa Q and IP Masquerena, they also have Mudora for Graveyard Disruption and both Heralds for Monster and Spell Negation, which is just over the top. Like, the deck itself is maybe okay, but the Ava Herald stuff is over the top, for sure. And the same is true for Herald of the for Sprite Elf. Like I think that is a very, if they don't want to hit Yummy directly yet because Yummy is relatively new, I would love if they did something to Orange Light and Sprite Elf, because those cards, they just put this deck over the top, man. Like Sprite Elf, and this is the thing, right? Most of these cards are not even archetype specific, right? These cards are just being abused by random decks to make them more broken. Like Baron the Fleur is not an Odeon card. Sprite Elf and Herald of the Orange Light have nothing to do with Yummy. And same with Gem Knight, right? Like those cards are just like randomly increasing the power level of these decks for no reason, which I think is something they should take a look at. Draco Tail, they absolutely should hit Draco Tail. Just because I like the deck does not mean they shouldn't hit it. It is my favorite deck in Master Duel right now, but it does deserve some hits. It is a very strong deck. Personally, I could see them doing something like semi-limit Ketu, semi-limit Rahu. I think 2 of each would be interesting. I know that in TCG they did 1 Ketu, 3 Rahu, and in OCG I think they did, now both are at 1. They could do the same thing and just limit one of them. I think it'd be more interesting if they did 2 each. They could get rid of Verte. I would be okay with that. I honestly, I would be okay with it. I don't hate Verte. I really don't. I think the times where like Verte into DPE or Verte into Dragoon or anything like that was considered broken are gone. I don't think the card is a huge problem. But if they want to, I guess it depends on what they want to do. Do they want to hit Draco Tail directly, or do they want to hit the hybrid with Branded? But I think they would rather just hit Draco Tail personally. I don't think they're gonna ban Verte. It would be a solid solution though. I wouldn't hate it, but I think they do prefer to hit Draco Tail, which I think the most realistic things are that they're gonna hit the spells a little bit, and then they're gonna hit 1 or 2 of the monsters, like a Mululu or Lucius. I could see those, and 5 mana probably. I'm not a fan of hitting 5 mana. I've personally I've been enjoying when decks have in-engine ways to go second better. So I'm not a fan of hitting 5 mana. I know it's a powerful card, but I think that does not necessarily make it or should make it go on the ban list. I think that is a core identity of Draco Tail, is that it's not as broken going first, but has more game going second than other decks. And I think if you hit 5 mana, you remove that aspect, right? If you remove 5 mana from the deck, it's just like, now it's just a relatively fair deck going first that sucks ass going second. And I don't think that's a good solution. So what else do we have? 5 Rainbow Magician should go, but I will also say that I played against exactly 0 5 Rainbow Magician the entire weekend. It was about 50 hours of Master Duel. I played against 0 Rainbow Magicians. So I agree with you. They should ban it just to make sure. But I'm not sure if they're going to see the necessity for it, because they have the stats. They have the stats to take a look at to see how popular it was. And I guess we're going to have to wait and see if they think it's a ban. But they should. They should, but I just wanted to get that out there. I didn't see it very often. Right? And that leaves us with pretty much just Vanquish Soul and Mitsu Ryziel, right? For the decks that are left in the top. Mitsu Ryziel, I don't understand what's so hard about banning King of the Feral Imps. Personally, I thought that the Ryziel crossban was already a really good thing that they did. This deck felt so much more beatable without Ryziel cross. I will say this. This deck was still powerful. This deck is still really good, but the Ryziel crossban made it so much more enjoyable to play against. Like, yes, it's still a top meta deck, but I played so many good games against this deck that were actually winnable, because they couldn't just like negate my cards whenever they wanted and draw extra cards each turn and have infinite Ryziels. Like this deck felt more fun to play against already. Like the cross ban was phenomenal. So this deck, I still think it's time for King of the Feral Imps to go, because look, the Ryziel cards are good, but if they cannot search Habakiri, then they are fine. And for Mitsu itself, for Master Duel, honestly, I'm not sure if they want to hit it super harsh yet because it is relatively new. My favorite way to do it for now, for Master Duel, and this might be a hot take, I don't know, but I would love to see them ban Mitsurugi Crate Purification. The fact that like everyone is playing this card in best of one just makes this deck so much more busted going first. When they just have an Omni Negate on top of everything, I would love that. The alternative is do the standard, like limit prayers, right? Yeah, okay, they can limit prayers. That's something they've done in every format. Well, not in TCG yet. They limited Haba instead, but like in the OCG, they've limited prayers, and I think eventually the TCG will probably follow suit, and eventually I think Master Duel will also follow suit. Like I think prayers is going to be limited in probably every format at some point. I would really enjoy if they want to leave Mitsurugi around for now. They could just ban the trap card, which would make the deck significantly weaker, but also significantly fairer, but still good. The deck is still really powerful if you end on Magatama instead of the trap, believe it or not. Negates are just everywhere because they're so powerful, but removal is also a very good form of interruption. And if they ban the trap, it's not going to really change the viability of the deck. It's just going to make it more fun to play against. So I think they should just ban the trap. I think banning the trap and banning the King of the Feral Imps would be good. Banning the trap just kills pure Mitsu. I got first in Swiss at French Nationals last year without the trap in the main deck. It is absolutely possible to play pure Mitsu without the trap. That was even without Ryziels. That was in full power Mitsu Ryziel format. I just played Magatama in the main deck because I didn't want the trap in my hand going second. It's not necessary for the deck to be good. It just makes it healthier. And then for Vanquish Soul K9, I already know I'm gonna be frustrated with what they're gonna do because I know the solution, but I also know they're not gonna do it. And that's frustrating to me. That this is probably going to be my least favorite part about the upcoming ban lists. Because for months to come, they're going to do small things to hurt this deck's consistency probably. And they're never going to do the thing that's going to be necessary, which is to ban Ripper. And I'm saying this well aware that they're probably never going to do that. They're never gonna ban Ripper, and it's so frustrating. But they're gonna do some random shit like semi-limit Holisu, and then on the next one they're gonna like limit Jokul or limit Case for K9 or limit Raisin, semi-limit Madlove. Those are the kind of hits we're getting. I guarantee. I know that's what's gonna happen, and it's gonna be very frustrating for me. They're gonna do like Raisin to 1, Steak to 1, Madlove to 2, Holisu to 2, Jokul to 1, Case to 1. They're gonna do all that before they're banning Ripper, which is so sad. But I guess that's how it's gonna go. I've already accepted the fate of Vanquish Soul K9 in that regard, but yeah. Why the heck would Ripper need to be banned when Vanquish Soul is the issue? Because Vanquish Soul is not the issue, in my opinion. Vanquish Soul is an awesome deck that does not have any problems. If they never made K9, no one would ever complain about Vanquish Soul. In their right mind, at least. That's just rage bait, yeah. If you think the Vanquish Soul cards are the problem when K9s literally negate every hand trap in the game and make the craziest endboard pieces in this deck, do you want to know what Vanquish Soul would summon out of this extra deck if there wasn't K9 cards in this deck? They would summon Rock of the Vanquisher. That's it. That's your end board in Vanquish Soul. Can we ban Spell Canceller too? There's a couple of other cards that they could realistically hit in Master Duel right now. I am like... Okay. Thank you for the valuable contribution to the discussion, Farfa. Appreciate you for that. There's a couple of evergreens that I'm always expecting them to hit a little bit, like Shifter and Called by the Grave. I never lose hope that they eventually do it. Max C, of course. Ash Blossom, Dominus Impulse, those kind of cards, but I just don't want to go over them every single time we discuss this, right? Like right now, I would just prefer to talk about like how to hit the meta decks, right? Yeah, but there's genuinely one thing that I wanted to do at some point if I have the time, I want to go look at all of my games and see how many of them were like decided by certain non-engine cards, because I feel like I tried as much as I was trying to focus on the games, of course, but I tried to keep track in my head a little bit, and I felt like there was so many games. I think this is, once again, gut feeling. I think that the most surrenders this weekend probably happened immediately after Ash Blossom. This is something I would have to take a look at the games and go through it and actually count. But I think mine for sure, I definitely surrendered most of the time after Ash, either because they ashed my only like Charmy, or because I started playing and they ashed my first play and I knew I couldn't win. And I also noticed that most of my opponents were doing the same thing. This is something, once again, it's a gut feeling. It is a gut feeling, and I would like, before I confidently say this, I would like to go through all the stuff. It's just a lot of footage, but I think Ash was probably the card that caused the most surrenders in my run this weekend. Not just from me, but from my opponents as well. But I would like to take a look at all of the stuff and actually count it before I make that statement to back it up with something, right? It's like 50 hours of footage. Even if I speed it up and even if I jump from game to game, it's gonna take a lot of time, and I obviously didn't have that time yet, but I want to do that in the upcoming weeks. And I wanted to do the same thing for the TCG as well, from like from tournaments, because I think the whole discussion about Ash Blossom has been a lot of like vibe based. Like, people have arguments for and against it, which is fine. I would like to take a look at the actual raw statistics. Like, how often does Ash win for the player going first? How often does Ash win for the player going second? How often does Ash, or which cards in general, force the opponent to pack up their cards and surrender, whether it's Master Duel or TCG? I think that is interesting data for this discussion to back it up. And as far as I'm aware, no one has done this yet, and I want to take the time at some point to do that. Yeah. And maybe, look, maybe the results are different. Maybe the Charmies are the cards that win the most games going second. Maybe the Charmies are the cards that force people to lose games. Maybe Droll is the card that forces the most people to surrender. But we don't know that until someone sits down and actually gathers the data. And I would like to do that. I would like to do that. So I will do that in the upcoming weeks. It's a project I have on my list. Maybe we'll do it on stream together, because that's a lot of footage to look through. I don't know if I have the time to do it off stream. Maybe we'll do a friggin' detective stream to figure out the best cards in the game. I think it could be interesting. I don't know. I just know for sure it takes a lot of time. So we could do it as like the same way we did the card sorting streams, right? Where we just sit down and yap and do something else in the background. I could see doing that for this as well. But yeah. Anyways. So that was the Duelist Cup experience. I'm very happy how it turned out. I was very happy with the streams. You guys really seemed to like it. And that made me really happy. And I was a big fan of my performance this time around. I'm proud of it. It's the first time that I'm proud of my performance in a Duelist Cup, which is cool.